Hello and welcome everyone out there, wherever you may be watching, listening, or tuning in from, and welcome to today's PermanenteDocs Chat. I'm your host, as always, Alex McDonald, and today I'm excited to talk with Dr. Honsberger, who is an OBGYN from Orange County and Director of Physician Development in Orange County and a Certified Emotional Intelligence Trainer. So Dr. Honsberger, welcome to the PermanenteDocs Chat. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my goodness, thanks for having me. This is really exciting.
Awesome. And in case you hadn't figured out by now, we're talking about emotional intelligence and why it's important for physicians to know what this is and have a little bit of training or where they can learn more to increase these skills, which are going to benefit us. If you have questions, please make sure you get those in early. If you're joining us live, get those in the Q&A box. These chats are short and high yield. We try to get those questions early and often. And then shout out to those of you joining us on LinkedIn Live today. So let's just jump right in. Dr. Honsberger, tell us a little more about who you are and what you do.
Oh, thanks. So I'm actually a family physician, but I do practice in women's health. But I've mostly spent probably now about the last 15 years really in physician development and support and physician leadership development. And so that kind of sparked my interest in my own personal growth, and which led me down the road of emotional intelligence and some of the work there. And then I've kind of built on that over time. So I also now sit on our elected board, which I love being a part of that as well. But really my passion is all things physician support and development.
Great. Sorry about that. I apologize.
And no, it actually happens quite often, so don't worry about it. I just want out of respect for my colleagues, I want to, be a truth teller.
Absolutely. Well, and shout out to those who do family medicine, such as myself, who practice a little bit of everything. So including women's health. So thanks for the clarification. Well, let's just start with kind of the basics. What is emotional intelligence?
So, emotional intelligence, the concept of it has been around for a very long time. And in fact, based on the work of Daniel Goleman, really way back when, and the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership and success. Now, since then, it's even expanded more in just emotional literacy and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, but the basic concept of emotional intelligence is that you have enough self-awareness to recognize your emotions and the emotions in other to then really navigate relationships, both the relationship with yourself, that's the self-management idea. I like to say, if I'm getting triggered, I might need to step away, but also in the relationship management piece and how we work with others. So I decided to kind of get certified so I could use some of the work with our physicians and our groups and build on it. So, but that's the basic idea around emotional intelligence. And there's a lot of research that, we like to follow leaders who motivate us, inspire us, and often we see them having a little bit higher emotional intelligence. But the good news is you can also build it. There are tools, there are tricks if you need to strengthen one part of the muscle. There's 4 components real quick, and then I'll the first one is self-awareness. The second one is self-management. Mm-hmm. And then in the broader scope, there's social awareness, and then there's relationship management. And those are kind of the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence.
Okay, so it sounds like certainly a skill which is absolutely critical for physicians, not only interacting with patients, but also interacting with the myriad other members within the healthcare team, especially in sometimes very high pressured life or death potentially situations. Would that not be an understatement?
Yeah, that you pegged it, because what really I do believe, medicine is filled with a lot of empathic physicians and healthcare teams. And that's the component of the social awareness. But we also might need some of the other pieces of it to have a longer career and that longevity. So I've also kind of explored the linking around compassion, where that comes into play, and the many, many relationships that we every day are dealing with, whether it's our patients, the team, each other, things like that.
Okay. Now, is this something that is specifically innate? Is it something you mentioned you can kind of develop it and work on it and grow your emotional intelligence in certain areas? But it seems like, I'll just be honest, some people tend to have more kind of innate emotional intelligence than others. Is that accurate?
The idea that you can build on it really is, it's all relative. So we all will get a different, if we take the assessment, if you decide to take the assessment, you're going to get a percentage in each of those 4 quadrants. So
Okay.
you may be really, really high in self-awareness and self-management, but it also might mean you're the first one to set boundaries and walk out of the room,
Right.
maybe a little prematurely, right? So depending on what percentage you are, that's what you get to decide to work on. So in my case, relationship management has always been the one that I need to continue to grow and build on, because some of it comes down to setting some boundaries or loosening our boundaries. But so you can develop it, and I'll give you a quick example. If social awareness is one of the lower percentages, and for us as physicians, we all are low in general on these tests because we're used to being very high on tests, but it's really all related to each percentage. Is for social awareness, one of the tools you can use is you can go to the movies and pay really a lot of attention to the emotions and naming the emotions and things like that. So that's a really simplistic, low-hanging fruit, but I do love to recommend getting out and going to movies if you have the opportunity.
So what I'm hearing you saying is we should all go to the movies.
Exactly. But there are there's other things you can work on, and the book, and if you do the actual assessment, it does have specific things you can be doing, with the idea that if you took the assessment again in 6 months, you might see a little bit of a change in that percentage.
Now, is this something that is formally taught to physicians? Is this something that we sort of just kind of learn kind of through osmosis in our training? How is this like built into the practice of medicine?
Well, it's interesting. We're so fortunate, at least here in SCPMG, we have a really robust leadership development program, as well as when associates join, and we're, on our pathway to partnership, that we do use some of these programs, which is why I got certified, so I could have the materials, but we were doing it anyway. And it can be foundational. So I think that's one of our fortunate opportunities here within our group, because I would almost guarantee that in the outside world, they just don't have the same robust support and development for our careers and our profession.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. We have a question in the chat here that I'm going to kind of a little bit of a segue, but it's on topic here. So how can doctors kind of gain more skills regarding emotional intelligence without being certified or becoming certified, given how busy everyone is?
Yeah, so you can just Google the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. I have no skin in the game there, but that's what you can use. And there's an assessment in it, as well as all of the things to kind of understand it better. You take the assessment and it gives you your percentages, and then you can focus on some of the areas. So absolutely. There's other programs people can go to and things like that, but really that's kind of the easiest, to just start by taking a look at ourselves.
Yeah. And are there different sort of tools and strategies that it provides for working on different aspects if you're lower in one quadrant versus another?
Yeah. I only remember I get to go see movies, but actually there's a lot of other, 25 tips for each area that you can work on. The relationship management part's been interesting to explore more, because it's led me down the path. This might resonate with some of the people of really, what does it look like to have good boundaries? We talk a lot about compassion fatigue, and many other, things that I know you've done some podcasts on those different topics of burnout. But really, when you explore the relationship management part, that is where you can actually end up growing a little bit in your ability to have healthier boundaries. And I think that's a unique and essential skill for us, for a long and sustainable career.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of perfect segue kind of into my next question here, is regarding just kind of maintaining our joy in practice as physicians, joy, gratitude, optimism, all these pieces definitely can seem to have a positive upward spiral to help us be healthier, happier physicians, or can have, unfortunately, a negative downward spiral. And how does emotional intelligence and physician well-being and joy in practice how do those kind of coalesce, and what are some things that we can do individually and collectively to kind of cultivate a positive environment and positive emotional intelligence?
Yeah, it really is a kind of a beautiful foundation, and especially if you understand really what your strengths are in this space, and then also what can get you in trouble.
Hmm.
The self-management part, for some, we have to make decisions. Am I going to engage in this right now? Am I in a good space to do it?
Yeah.
Should I really be sending that email right now? So I've had to work a little bit on that. I'm a very passionate person, and things are very urgent most of the time to me in my head.
Sure.
But
Yep.
developing kind of this idea of, is this the right time, and what do I need to be doing to be in the best place to engage and
Hmm.
have conversations or problem solve with others. So in terms of the joy and the gratitude, we all went into a profession, not necessarily a business. I didn't go into a business, and yet we are
Hmm.
in a business. So I
Hmm.
think by being able to really explore more around, what our strengths with our relationships with each other and how we support each other as colleagues, I think that does enhance our joy. It's kind of why we're here.
Hmm.
And sometimes it can get lost. And for some, and for me in my past, although I'm a little better now, I did have to realize that I didn't have to fix and engage in everything, that I
Right.
sometimes have to hold back. And
Yeah.
that's the insight from some of the emotional intelligence work.
Yeah, I have two. Your comments have made me think of two things specifically, kind of that I can give examples in my own career. Is one, I am a very socially connected individual. For those of you who don't know, and COVID was the worst thing ever because I never got to interact with any of my colleagues. Some of my colleagues started in the middle of COVID, and even if they worked down the hallway, everyone was so isolated. We didn't have those kind of those micro social interactions, just a smile or a hello in the hallway, and those little interactions really, I felt that those were really valuable for me, both personally and professionally, just to maintain my own kind of happiness and wellness as an individual. And I don't think I realized how important those little micro interactions were until they were gone, quite frankly. So that's kind of one example I can give. And then the second piece I, oh darn it, I lost it. That's all right. It'll come back to me. Probably at 2 in the morning when I'll wake up and remember what my question was. Um,
Well,
there
I
was,
love that
sorry.
you pointed out that about kind of the micro dosings of things like, time with colleagues. The other thing I think we need to just point out, the elephant in the room. I know you and your background, a little bit about me, but,
Hmm.
we have all these other responsibilities. We have
Sure.
Mikey's kids, at one point, a mom who was ill, and you can't be everywhere, right? So finding
Sure.
those things that you need. For me, it was I needed a little bit of alone time. So I would go
Hmm.
walk for 30 minutes, not respond to people, things like that. So that's another piece of this self-awareness, is what do we need to do to, get through work and life, as
Yep.
it's all blended together.
Yep. No, absolutely. There. It seems now with these little devices and computers in our pockets, we are always seemingly on, and we can't ever step away sometimes, which can be very draining. So I think that's an important piece to make sure we do set boundaries for ourselves and our work, and our family sometimes too.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
what are some ways that as individual physicians we can help foster emotion intelligence amongst other physicians and other colleagues? What are some things that you do, both within your professional role, there within Orange County, as well as just kind of individually? What are some things we can do to help foster greater emotional intelligence amongst our colleagues?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it makes me think of really the one word of curiosity.
Hmm.
We in medicine, we're a hypercritical group. We're hypercritical of ourselves,
Yep.
and thank goodness we are, because we have a really noble profession that there's often a lot at stake. But sometimes we are just as hypercritical in other spaces where we don't need to be. So getting
Hmm.
curious, why are they acting that? Why are they responding that way, right? And by really just modeling that empathy, even if it's I think there's a book about how to love a porcupine or something like that. It's even
Right.
if you
Right.
feel like you want to pull away because the energy is not the same as yours, get closer, get curious. And often I think that's where you learn a lot more about what people are feeling, what they're doing, and really that does then develop a better relationship. So
Hmm.
I think that's our opportunity.
Yeah, that reminds me of a kind of a phrase that, or like a kind of a framework my colleagues likes to use about when you're dealing with a difficult patient or a difficult colleague or person, instead of thinking to yourself, gosh, what's wrong with this person, shift the framework to what happened to this person. And I think
Absolutely.
that's part of that curiosity of why are they acting this way, what's motivating them. And I think that framework can help us be less kind of oppositional and more collaborative with anyone in our lives,
All
whether it be
relationships,
all
totally.
relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You bring up
I
a
find
good
that
point
little.
there, because I think, I started my work really in the clinician patient space and
Mhm.
how to enhance communication and connection. And then I had to shift a little because I'm sure we have many on the call here that are actually over connectors.
Sure.
Right. And we're fortunate now to be able to have some tools that may help us with our documentation, things like that. But something has to give, because you can't over connect. I used to learn things about patients that really I didn't need to know their niece was getting married in Vermont next year, right? But it's what I enjoyed about my practice, but it's not always a sustainable space. So you're totally
Sure.
right.
Yeah. And it's almost like you've been reading the script. And that actually dovetails perfectly to my next question is, again, emotional intelligence is this highly personal interaction with ourselves and with colleagues and patients. Now we have the advent or the explosion of technology, whether it be the electronic health record or now, augmented intelligence, which is now finding its ways in more and more interactions in the exam room, in email, in communication. How do you envision technology either benefiting or creating new challenges when it comes to emotional intelligence with ourselves individually and with our colleagues?
It's a great question. I was thinking about this because, like, I am testing out some of our ability to have, the virtual scribe idea. But
Mm-hmm.
well, I think there's a sweet spot. First of all, I think we always need that human connection. But some of the things that we're testing out or that will be tested out in medicine are actually really helpful. They're working on in basket, AI being able to take out new results. But there's a phrase that comes up that says, "Hello, Dr. Honsberger. I will be going into your in basket right now. I hope you have a good day." I'm like, that felt good. I know it's a bot or whatever, but so
Sure.
I think there's that, there's that sweet spot. I don't ever want us to lose the connections both with our patients and our colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we have to embrace technology and figure out ways to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think that physicians need to be kind of on the ground floor as this technology
Absolutely.
rolls out, so we can make sure that it works for us and isn't one additional challenge or patient challenge when it comes to technology. I've been fortunate enough. I tend to be an early adopter of technology. I've been using some of our augmented intelligence tools for documentation, and I walk in the room and I ask the patient if I can use this technology to record our visit, put my phone down, have a conversation with the patient, look at the patient, not even touch the computer. And really, for me, that really builds connection and collaboration. And it's so much more, it's a so much more enjoyable experience than being kind of like tied to the computer and not even looking at the patient. So for me as an individual, that augmented intelligence and artificial documentation listening tool has been really, really cool and has helped me kind of enjoy the practice of medicine more.
Yeah, and I'm a late adopter. I'm also a little older, but
That's okay. That's
I'm
okay.
not stubborn. I'm a learner. And I do believe for those of us who might, be over connectors and things, that it is something that will be a game changer. So I just
Mhm.
started using it and I love it. And I'm going to continue to grow with it because I do think it's a good part for a more sustainable kind of long-term career.
Yeah.
I don't think we plan things out as well like we did in our training. And so I
Hmm.
spent a lot of time with physicians talking about what does it look like in 5 years for you, in 10 years, and things like
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to kind of go back to it a little bit, and talk about that balance of sort of professional and personal life, just to prevent burnout and compassion fatigue, and a lot of the challenges we all face every day as physicians. What are kind of some concrete tools or recommendations you have for colleagues who are struggling with that kind of work life boundaries and separations and that kind of balance?
Yeah, I think so. The root really is a little bit of our perfectionism, which is good until it's not.
Right.
And again, remember, my family is not rating me on emotional intelligence. This is all work because my scores might be way lower at home, because that's often what happens with our balance, right? Something has to give.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would say is just, first of all, get to know yourself a little bit. I think even just taking an assessment like this, or something that to understand more about like where you are, and being able to say what you need. So for me, I know I need to get out and take a walk. That sounds silly. But I'm very clear that if I don't get it in, I'm going to be not the same person in either space.
Sure.
And we could do a whole podcast on self-compassion and going that road too, because there's a lot of linkage there. But being able to say, what's the one thing you need to get through your day, whether it's at work or at home, that is a really strong skill. And it is part of the self-management too, after you get to the awareness part.
I'm making a note to myself to do a future podcast on self-compassion, because I think that's an
Game
absolutely
changer.
critical topic.
Yeah.
And we'll try not to go down that rabbit hole at this visit. So,
Yeah.
well, this has been phenomenal. I love this topic. I love this conversation. You've done so much work in this area. We could go on, but again, we try to keep these pretty short and high yield. And so, last question, my favorite question: what makes you most proud to be a Permanente physician?
Yeah, so I feel I've been here so long. It feels that way. I trained here as well. I am so proud of our Permanente partners, and all the physician leadership and stuff is my passion. But my colleagues, we didn't know it was going to be this adventurous, I don't think, when we went into medicine, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So.
No, that's a great way to end the chat. So thank you so much for joining, your insights and your expertise, and just really appreciate your time and all the work that you do.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.